Right. So I think that the one thing that I really took away from this was a very few words, and that was a statement about a few $100 investments. That's kind of the language that I think I would like to hear. So my name is Per Persson. I'm here very happy and proud to both represent and present for a company called Acarix. And I have the opportunity to kick off this afternoon, and within the coming next 10 minutes, I'm just going to take you through a journey of, like many of the other companies that are presenting here today, represents a very long time of innovation. And in 10 minutes, I really hope to make you feel comfortable what it means to work in the field of ruling out cardiovascular disease. We are a small Swedish company, and we have been based on a technology that was developed in Denmark quite some years ago. In very short words, and I'll show you a video in just a few seconds, we are actually working with an acoustic technology by which we're able to listen to your heart and then determine whether you are suffering potentially from cardiovascular disease, which means that you have lesions in your coronary vessels. And we were put on the stock market in the very late part of 2016. And right now, to speak about some of the languages, we are in the emission process with the rights issue. And I'm happy to have an opportunity to speak to all of you after my little presentation. 1 minute of your time, which I think will save me about 20 slides in terms of presentation, just to show you to a nice pitching elevator music what our technology is all about.
The CADScore system uses innovative acoustic technology, ultra-sensitive phonocardiography, to listen to the entire heart, from the heart valves to the blood in the coronary arteries. When arteries narrow due to CAD, turbulence may occur in the bloodstream. Turbulence-related sounds, murmurs, can be an important indicator of significant CAD. After the recording phase, the audio is filtered, segmented and analyzed using state-of-the-art algorithms to identify abnormal sound patterns. The calculated CAD score is then presented on the display. The entire CAD test, including score calculation, takes less than 10 minutes. The CAD score system, designed to improve patient care.
So, in which market are we then operating? I think that most of the people in this room are aware of that cardiac disease is still the #1 killer. And the one thing that makes it really interesting for us is that the market opportunity, if you like to call it that way, is all those patients that are actually seeking for potential stable chest pain issues. But many of those patients are actually not suitable, and they should not be candidates moving on to the patient pathways into the coronary vessels. Fact is that about 90% of all patients that will seek for stable chest pains do not suffer from any cardiovascular disease. Most of those patients are suffering from, it could be anxiety, it could be stress, it could be inflammation, muscle disease, lung disease, etc. Fact is that when you speak to the cardiologist and the general practitioners, they're extremely aware of this factor. So the market opportunity for us as a company is enormous. And this is probably one of the most important slides, and this is really describing on where we think that CADScore should fit. If you look at the process today, a patient that is seeking for stable chest pain, the first thing either the general practitioners or the cardiologist would do would be to do an anamnese. He would interview the patient. Do you suffer from diabetes? Do you have it inheritance in your family, from your mother, from your father, etc.? Then he has determined whether he actually thinks that this patient is with a high likelihood suffering from a cardiovascular disease or coronary artery disease. He would send them for a stress test, which means that we would put them on a bicycle for about 20 minutes and put their heart rate at the maximum. The alternative would actually be to send them further on to what we call a CT scan, or even further on to angio. All those are creating an enormous waiting time for the patient, during which period, of course, they're suffering from anxiety. Everybody's very concerned if you have anything that is related to chest pain for yourself. The other thing is, of course, that each of those methodologies are also increasing in the cost and the expertise and the capital investment that you need to do. So the way we are positioning CADScore is that we actually want to be part at the very, very first interaction with the patient and help the physicians, being their second voice, so to speak, to actually help them determine and make them feel very safe in terms of ruling out the patient from the extension of the healthcare process. From a clinical perspective, being a small company, we have actually done pretty well in terms of studies. And this is coming from what's called a DaniCat-1 study. And this has actually put this, what I'm just speaking about, into a very pragmatic and practical example. As I mentioned, the first thing you would do would actually be to do the anamnese, the interview with the patients. And this is coming from our own study. Here you have almost 1,700 patients. And based only on the anamnese, the physician was safely ruling out about 14% of the patient, which means that they took 200 patients and they actually excluded them for the further development into the cardiac pathway, so to speak. If you now take the CADScor system and combine that with the anamnese, we were actually able to rule out almost 700 patients. So if you want to make a simple math, you could say that you could actually have a net value of about 500 patients less, only based on this population of 1,700 patients, that did not have to go further on for a CT scan, for an angio, or for a bicycle ride. That's really where we're focusing, and that's also where we can see that we can add a tremendous value through the healthcare system, both in terms of the patient situation, less waiting time, and of course also from a cost perspective, as the method itself is a much lesser cost than what you would compare to today. We have a program in which we are working thoroughly, and we have done, of course, some of our exploratory studies. We are still now looking at heart failure, which is the next coming event. For those of you who are in the cardiac world, you know that heart failure has been in a lot of the heat and the discussions in the last couple of years. So we're actually seeking on an early stage whether we can use the same algorithm that we have developed in our system also to help ruling out heart failure patients. Then, of course, we're looking at the clinical purpose, where we have made the investments in terms of the DaniCat study that I was just referring to. And now we're at the stage where we actually need to look at the further steps for both the physicians and the healthcare parameters, and that we're starting off what we call the filter study. The filter study is about 2,000 patients, and now we are looking at what happens when you actually make the active decision of doing the rule out of the patient, instead of sending them further on through the traditional methods. That's kind of the scope, and that's where we're actually coming from and where we're putting the investment. Like I said in the very beginning, we are right now in the rights issue. So, of course, we're in the funding industry, and we're starting this on Friday. This week is our last day for the subscription rights for us. And I thought I would just take a few minutes to explain to you what are we going to use those money for, because that is also the equivalent of the short-term strategy for us as a company. And I have one slide here that is in Swedish that I have now evolved into English. The first thing we're going to do is to actually continue our market expansion within European countries. Currently, we are active in Germany, Sweden, and to some extent into Austria. We are working actively with the reimbursement process in Germany, because I think that you all understand that reimbursement is one of the predicaments that we really need in order to bring this further and scale up the business. So that's an ongoing discussion. We have been mentioned in the NICE guidance on an early stage, but as a technology that any physician should actually keep their eyes on and expecting to be something that will evolve into the UK market. So we're going to continue to develop a health economic scale for that part in the UK. Then, of course, we will continue with what we're doing today at our best, which is really working with our local customers and trying to bring the market further on. The second thing we would like to do, and now everybody would say, why actually want to enter into the US market when you haven't really proven yourself into the European market? That goes without saying. If you want to be getting into the US market, we have to start the process very early. And where we are right now is getting ready to make a submission. And we're going to follow a de novo pathway, because we haven't actually not been able to find any Acarix device. There is no such technology as the acoustic technology that we are representing available with the right indication in the US market. So we have to follow the de novo pathway. So US is the next thing we want to do. Thirdly, of course, we need to continue with the work that we have started on when it comes to clinical trials. So, like I said, we have a few that are ongoing that are actually getting to the end, and the next big one is going to be the filter study that I mentioned. That will be about 2,000 patients and looking at the actual practical use of the device in itself. And the last thing we want to use the money for is the smaller part, but that is, of course, to continue to develop the technology that we have and actually make it, fit into the requirements we have today with regards to patient logging, database base, and the communication and the printing functions of the device itself. So isn't that perfect timing That was actually just about done. You don't even have to come up here. I'm done.
I like being up here, so don't try and kick me off stage. I'm going to kick you off stage.
All right, good. So then, here's my last slide in Swedish. Come see me in the afternoon, and we can speak about the företrädesemissionen.
Företrädesemissionen. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.